Well, what a finale that was. An extended season finale allowed us to see all of the story arcs come to a natural resolution in a way that was expected for some, but unexpected for some others. With us finding out the identity of the person who was washed up in the sea way back at the start of the season, I felt absolutely devastated that it happened the way that it did, but we'll get into that. Let's recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from this season finale. So let's get into it. Here is the White Lotus Season 2 Episode 7 Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. As we embarked on the final day of the trip, we had many things that were causing tensions to be high. We had Ethan not believing Harper for what happened when he found her in the room with the latch on the door. Tanya was growing increasingly suspicious of Quentin, and the same was apparent for Portia and Jack. Lucia and Albie's connection was growing stronger, but there was an element of self-doubt within his and his father's mind over if she was being sincere, and Dominic was mourning the family that he caused to essentially self-destruct. All of these individual narratives were answered in the season finale, so I'll break it down by each character arc. Let's start with the big one, Tanya and Quentin. Well, sadly, Tanya was the body who ended up being washed up in the sea way back at the start of the season. I was truly gutted when she fell off of the yacht because she did the hard part, and that was fending off the people that were trying to kill her. Tanya doesn't get her happy ending, and it also means that Greg will be set to inherit her $500 million in a way that he didn't expect. The person in the photo with Quentin was revealed to be Greg to us in this episode after it being alluded to that in the previous one. Greg was essentially behind the master scheming that was at play. In the prenup that was signed for their marriage, there was a clause that if Tanya were to die, it would mean that Greg would inherit all of the money. With Greg's history with Quentin, who we heard was a powerful person based off of the conversation that we witnessed between Jack and Portia, Greg was working with him to distract Tanya for a few days and then hire somebody, which was Niccolo, to come and kill her. However, her suspicions led her to take Niccolo's bag and run into the bedroom, finding things that would have meant that she would have been tied up and killed. But armed with the weapon, she took out everybody in her path. I found it rather strange, yet very Tanya, to say, "Is Greg having an affair?" as Quentin was sitting in front of her. She didn't want to address why they wanted to kill her. She just wanted to know if Greg was being unfaithful, not even if he was behind it all. Harm coming at her own hands was something that was ingrained throughout the entirety of the show, with the tarot reader uttering it, and also with Quentin taking her to see Madame Butterfly at the Opera House. So Tanya meeting her fate due to her own hands was a tragic yet rather fitting end for the character of Tanya. She gave her all to fend them off, but it was her own self who sadly caused her own demise by mistake. Ethan and Harper. Ethan couldn't shake the thought of his wife and Cameron together, and he didn't believe Harper when she said that nothing happened. However, as we saw, he was right to be suspicious, as Harper revealed that the both of them kissed when they came back to the room. I was surprised that Harper would lie to Ethan because she was being so confident, but it was what ultimately led them to reigniting their relationship. Ethan's mimetic desire kicked in, and it made him want Harper more than he ever had. However, I do wonder if something else could have made this happen. We saw Cameron and Ethan have the brawl that we were all anticipating in the sea, but once Ethan got out, we saw him sit down with Daphne. Ethan mentioned to her about how something could have happened between Cameron and Harper, and Daphne responded with, "Sometimes you have to do what you have to do to not feel like a victim of life," before then walking over to some secluded ruins with him, where there was a lot of focus on the both of them looking at each other. It does make me wonder if something happened between them at that specific moment. Ethan could have got even, so to speak, especially with Daphne also saying, "You don't have to know everything about somebody to be able to love them." This is something that I believe could have happened, and I believe that was the intention of this specific scene, to leave it up to us. Personally, I feel like it did. They're both victims, so to speak, from the actions of their partner, and with Ethan believing that it went further than what it did, it could have justified it in his mind. On the final night in their room, where Harper and Ethan finally got intimate with each other for the first time on the trip, we saw him knock over the Testa di Moro, something that Ethan had been obsessing over for the entirety of their time there. With its origin relating to unfaithfulness, I feel the breaking of it could either be representative of Ethan and Harper finally being together and being free over the hold that it had, or it could be symbolic of them both cheating on each other on this trip. Again, something that was left down to us. With the volcano being the last thing that we saw in the background of Ethan and Harper, with them now looking like they're happier than what they were when they arrived on the trip, I believe it has two different meanings. One for Cameron and Daphne, which I'll get to, but for Ethan and Harper, I believe it means the starting of something new, a happy relationship together. A volcano is symbolic of creation, and with Daphne saying to Harper a couple of episodes ago that she should get herself a trainer, meaning having a child, this could very much be the case following the actions of what we saw on their last night in the hotel room. Cameron and Daphne. Cameron and Daphne didn't have too much focus in the ending of the show, other than the confrontation with Ethan and then Daphne taking Ethan away. Their involvement wasn't that heavy. We saw Lucia get paid by Cameron on the last day as he went to dinner with his wife, which reminded us one final time of what Cameron is like as a husband. The final shot that we saw of the both of them was them sitting behind Ethan and Harper with the same image of the volcano being present within the background. For Ethan and Harper, it represented creation and the start of something new. For these two, I feel it represented uncertainty and the fact that their relationship could explode at any moment. Cameron doesn't know that Daphne is aware of all that he gets up to when he's cheating, and it's dangerous to think that you can do what you want and not get caught. So their future is something that I feel is more unpredictable than stable for sure. Daphne, despite being made out to be a bit suspicious and maybe behind something sinister, I believe it was done purely because that's just who she is as a person. Being with Cameron has made her come across like that, because she has to be suspicious, because there's always something going on in her life that she might not know about. Portia and Jack. Portia was a character that I really felt for in this final episode of the show. You could sense the fear that was present within her after her phone went missing, she couldn't find Jack on social media, and also after she found out about Jack being with his apparent uncle, which just most certainly wasn't the case. For a long part of the episode, I feel we were being led to believe that Portia could end up in trouble, but it turned out that she was just being kept away from Tanya and the craziness that was set to occur on the yacht. I always feared that they viewed Portia as disposable, when in reality, they just didn't want her to be harmed. Portia said that she wanted excitement in her life when she went out for dinner with Albie in episode 2, and this season certainly delivered that for her. The most excitement she'll probably ever have in her life. The entire time that she was with Jack, he was essentially playing her, ticking a box, doing a job, just as we saw Lucia doing with Albie. So it was rather fitting that these two characters, despite being together at the start, they left each other and ended up going on the exact same journey, all to end up getting each other's numbers at the end. A mirrored destination that had two different routes on how they got there. Portia didn't directly know that Tanya was dead, but by what Albie said, you could sense that she knew deep down that harm had come her way. Albie and Lucia. Back in episode 2, Albie said that he attracted wounded birds, and Lucia played the role of a wounded bird to Albie, and it worked in her favour. Albie got his father to wire 50,000 euros to Lucia to get Alessio off her back, as it was made out like he was stalking her for money. But we saw in the end of the episode, as we saw in the first episode of the show in the background, Alessio wasn't that at all. He was somebody who knew Lucia, and they were in on it together. We did see a different side to Albie at one point in this episode when he was talking to his father and making a deal to get the money sent over. He essentially bargained a deal where he said that he would inform his mother that his father had missed her a lot during the trip in order to repair his marriage. Even though Lucia played Albie and he was a victim to his own kindness, I believe there was an ounce of Lucia that did like Albie. The turning back and looking at him showed that there was something there. He showed her a side to people that she'd never experienced before. A caring, compassionate side, but it wasn't enough to stop her from taking the money and leaving. Maybe Albie and Portia could be the recurring characters next season. They did exchange numbers after all. Dominic and Bert. Dominic missed his family, and the more and more that the season went on, we saw that come to the forefront of his character arc. He was crying at the start of this episode, which was something I didn't think we'd see the character do. He also told Albie he loved him when he left breakfast, and we saw him finally get an answer from his wife on the phone back home. Him looking over at the women at the airport showed the attractiveness towards people that he holds within him, but him keeping it contained and being faithful is something that he needs to do in order for his life to work back home, and he's now realized that. Family is the most important thing to him. Bert didn't have much to do in this final episode, but we saw him crack a joke at the end which showed the character was never going to change his ways. Valentina and Mia. In the end, Valentina felt comfortable in her own skin, something that we hadn't seen in the entirety of the show, and Mia was the person who enabled her to feel that. Her allowing Rocco to go back to the front desk and be with Isabella was symbolic of that too. Valentina had experienced something for the first time and it had changed her for the better. I always thought Mia was going to be a victim of Giuseppe after the inevitable taking of his job that was set to occur. So one half was correct, but Giuseppe was just fired. Mia got her dream job of being a singer and was unharmed. I thought this show was great. One of the best shows that I've watched in a while. With the start of its setting up and focusing on the body in the sea, it was only partially about that. It was more about love, lust, relationships, friendships, faithfulness, and deceitfulness, and how all of them can be present within one relationship and the impact it can have on yourself and others. Tanya meeting her fate the way that she did was utterly devastating as she fought off her attackers, but it was painted in the stars and was ingrained throughout the show in small subtle hints. I'm glad we've got a season 3 that will be on the way, and I can't wait to see if any of the characters will be making a return. So, there you have it. The White Lotus Season 2 Episode 7 Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos such as Endings Explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the I button, or alternatively you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @BrainPilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of the season finale? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.